Today we have something a little bit off the beaten path, but a little bit of a circle coming all the way around for one of the videos that we've done in the past, that being about Brice Sensabaugh, who's had a pretty solid season overall. Yes, he has yet to escape the Rodney Hood comparisons, another Jazz legend in a way, I guess you could say, as he's most known for playing for the Utah Jazz. But in the same vein, I believe that Brice Sensabaugh is due for some praise, especially considering the fact that over the past 13 games, he's been in double figures, all but one of them. Now, granted, that one game, he did end up missing all of his field goals. I believe it was 0-5 and had no points in that one. But overall, over the past 13 games, he has put together a rather impressive stint of basketball play. Hello there, it's your boy Ray Toops. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. Brice Sensabaugh over the past 13 games has put together a resume of 13.8 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.9 assists, while shooting 47.5% from the field and 47.5% from beyond the arc. This has been on about 10.5 overall field goals, and 6.5 of those being three-pointers. Brice Sensabaugh, we've known, has had the ability to score the ball. His rookie season was definitely the polar opposite of what we're seeing from him during this current stretch of basketball, to the tune of 39% from the field and 29.5% shooting from beyond the arc, which nobody would ever expect to amount to really much of any minutes. But in the time that he has been allowed to have, obviously this season the Utah Jazz are tanking, we're trying to test out many different things and see who we have on our roster, who's going to be around as a core member long term, and then who, of course, is just going to end up being trade fodder. And Brice Sensabaugh is kind of working his way into the rotation and saying that while he may not be the core or one of the immediate core pieces of our future, he's definitely going to be somebody that is going to be a worthy option of consideration when it comes to bigger rotation minutes. And yes, Keyonte George is finding his room more so on the bench and sprouting and blossoming into a really great player, while Isaiah Collier is taking that role as the lead point guard. But you can't necessarily sleep on what Brice Sensabaugh has been able to put together. Overall this season, he's had 10 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, half a steal, and this is just in 18.5 minutes of play on average on a nightly basis. He's also shot 45% from the field and 39% from three-point range, while also putting together 92% shooting from the free throw line. Now, he was a 90% free throw shooter, I believe, on 1.3 attempts last season, so it doesn't necessarily surprise me, and the idea that he could be a good shooter was always in the back of my mind. But being able to see him put together 10-plus game stretches multiple times during the season, particularly during one 30-plus point outing, the first one of his career against the Miami Heat so long ago, and we ended up winning that game, it was really a head turner in a way for a lot of Utah Jazz fans, because it didn't just put him on the map as somebody that wasn't going to be just any run-of-the-mill second-round pick, but it showed that he was a legitimately good pick in the draft that he came in. And it kind of puts things into a different perspective, because yes, we always focus on Keyonte George. Yes, Taylor Hendricks, despite his injury, we're still expecting great things from him when he comes back next season. But Brice Sensabaugh was always that guy that kind of slid under the radar, in a way similar to how Kyle Filipowski was at the beginning of the season. A lot of people said, yes, he fell in the draft, but overall he should be a decent player. In my opinion, he was always going to be the most NBA-ready player out of the three. Isaiah Collier, however, was turnover prone. Did he have more point guard skills than a lot of other people on the roster? Of course, but nobody expected him, even myself and what belief that I had for him. I didn't expect him to be able to flip gears so fast and by February be putting up almost 10 assists guaranteed on a night-by-night basis. Coming into March, there's only been more growth on his end, just like there's been more growth on Brice Sensabaugh's end. And of course, the season's slowly going to wind down, and he may end up tapering off just a little bit. But the fact that he's been able to not only score double figures on a multitude of games and give us a large sample size of his shooting abilities, but he's also been giving us a really solid stint on defense. Now, obviously, the team's bad. We're expecting things not to get much better during the season, and we want to tank to make sure we get a top pick in this draft. But at the same time, you want to be able to see those bright, shining spots from everybody on the roster so you know what you do have and what you need to make sure you get in the draft, because certain guys on this team will not be here after this offseason. And some guys are on the bridge of telling us whether or not we should keep them, whether or not they are going to be a core piece. And if we do think they are a core piece, they also have to show where they fit in, because it's not just about having a culmination of great talent. You also have to make sure all the pieces fit together like a puzzle. And when you have Lauri Markkanen, who of course is going to have the trade talks, rumors, and everything under the sun blurted out about him as soon as the season ends because he's going to be trade eligible, there's going to be a lot of other guys that teams will inquire about. Walker Kessler's having an uptake season. And even Brice Sensabaugh this year showing his ability to be really, really efficient and spot minutes. It does wonders for his ability not just to be a core member on the Utah Jazz roster, but also for other teams that may be higher level, may just need an extra couple of pieces off the bench to go ahead and say, hey, just inquire. How much do you guys want for him? What will it take? Is it just going to take a second round draft pick? Is it going to take a second and a first? Do you want another young, promising player, or can we just offload him something simple? Now, I obviously have been one of the bigger Brice Sensabaugh believers, and while he hasn't necessarily reached the shape that I would love for him to be playing in on a night-by-night basis, I believe he's listed as 6'5", 235 at this current moment. I do believe he's a little bit under that, but it's not necessarily by as much as you would like. Of course, he's not necessarily an injury risk like one Zion Williamson is, and his game is more so finesse, a little bit of wiggle in his handle, and then a lot of jumpers. And in that way, it's always going to be slightly sustainable as long as his percentages are up. Now, of course, if his percentages go down, he doesn't necessarily have defense as a crutch to lean on, but we have for the longest time known that wasn't going to be the case. We just need him to be a serviceable defender and be a really solid shooter. And honestly, if you can give me a borderline 40% shooting from three-point range on a sizable number of attempts, and over any 10, 15 game stint, you might bust out on 6 attempts for 45% shooting. That's pretty good. And overall, I just feel like Brice Sensabaugh is one of those guys that going forward will continue to fall under the radar. So I'll just keep chatting about him here, there, and everywhere in between, along with grading how he did and the rest of the players on the roster did in the upcoming weeks and months, because we have a large sample size to talk about, particularly from the young guy's standpoint. And to start off, because I did just happen to choose him today, he, in my book, is probably looking at an A-, because he went from being a guy that was going to be an afterthought who could have been trade fodder just to fill in salary gaps, or a guy that just could have not got signed after his rookie deal, into a guy that people are actually turning their heads and saying, hold on, there might actually be something here. Now, nobody's going to go out here and say that he's going to be an all-star player in the next 3-4 years, and he may never be. That wouldn't surprise anybody. But I believe that he's definitely lengthened his ability to stay in the league and proven to several people in several front offices that he is somebody to be reckoned with. With that being said, if you made this far in the video, I appreciate you. More coming out as always. It's your boy Wraith Hoops. Drop any suggestions in the comments below. As always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where in the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.